The pristine white two-story house in Newton's upscale residential area, Massachusetts, looked as if it had stepped right out of a postcard. In January's bitter cold, smoke from the fireplace dissolved into the winter sky. Snow from the previous day had accumulated in the garden, and icicles on the street trees sparkled with light. In this educational district near Boston College, the lively voices of students occasionally carried on the wind. Caroline Wilson sat on the sofa wrapped in a warm blanket, her hand resting on her swollen belly. 8 months pregnant, she continued her work as a graphic designer from home while trying to maintain bed rest. Her MacBook screen displayed logo design proposals for major New England corporations. Her artistic sense, honed at the Boston School of Art, had earned her clients' deep trust, making the transition to remote work seamless. "Mom, I made you some tea," said her 9-year-old daughter Lily, gently placing a warm cup of chamomile tea on a coaster. A top student at Ward Elementary School, she was like a little nurse, always mindful of her mother's condition. Still in her school uniform after finishing her piano lesson, the key hanging from her neck gleamed like a badge of responsibility. "Thank you, Lily. I don't know what I'd do without you." Caroline smiled, and Lily beamed with pride. The aroma of apple pie, brought over by Mrs. Johnson from next door, filled the room with warmth. The neighborhood connections that began through PTA meetings had become a strong support system in this community. Just then, the sound of a BMW X7's engine echoed in the garage. It was time for her husband Gregory to return home. Though he'd been coming home after 7 lately, today was unusually early. "Dad's home." Lily ran to the entrance as Gregory, the Boston branch manager of Prudential Insurance, walked in looking tired. His dark gray suit was custom-tailored, and he carried a briefcase. The dignity of an elite insurance executive earning over $300,000 annually was always evident in his bearing. "I'm home," his voice sounded distant. He skipped his usual habit of patting Lily's head. As the bells of First Baptist Church of Newton rang in the distance, Gregory suddenly handed Lily a box. "Lily, this is a present from Dad." Inside was the latest iPad Pro. An expensive gift out of the blue, neither for Christmas nor birthday. While Lily exclaimed in surprise, Caroline felt uneasy about her husband's sudden gesture. The guilt lurking in his eyes triggered her intuition. "It's proof of Dad's love," Gregory said, quickly disappearing into his study. His gesture of loosening his tie carried an unfamiliar urgency. That night, as Caroline lay in bed, she reflected on her husband's recent behavior. His returns home had gradually gotten later, and rumors of increased dinners with young female employees had reached her ears. She had been secretly informed by another employee's wife about notably frequent dinners with a new hire named Diana. Looking at the family photo on the mantelpiece, she suppressed her anxiety. Their carefree smiles from last summer's vacation in Cape Cod now felt like a distant memory. With the risk of premature labor and doctor's orders for bed rest, Caroline had no energy to pursue the truth. As she felt her child move inside her, their peaceful days seemed as fragile as walking on thin ice. On January 15th, the cry of new life echoed through a private room at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. Caroline, rushed in with contractions a week before her due date, safely delivered a 6-pound boy after 4 hours of labor. From the large windows of the maternity ward, Boston's cityscape stretched out before her. Snow that had begun falling early morning had painted the entire city white. As Caroline held her baby from the incubator, listening to his soft breathing, she was enveloped in deep relief. "Congratulations, Mrs. Wilson. He's a very healthy boy." Dr. Sarah Cohen, her attending physician, watched over mother and child with a warm smile. Caroline was truly grateful for choosing this hospital with its well-equipped neonatal intensive care unit. "The baby is absolutely adorable." Jane Smith, a fellow PTA member who visited the room, gazed tenderly at the baby. Members of the First Baptist Church of Newton's women's group came one after another to offer congratulations, filling the room with bouquets. However, amidst this joyful atmosphere, there was one person who carried a dark shadow. At 3 in the afternoon, when Lily visited during visiting hours, Caroline immediately noticed something was wrong. Her usual bright smile was gone, and her small uniformed figure seemed to tremble as if caught in a cold wind. "Lily, what's wrong? Don't you want to meet the baby?" When Caroline called out, Lily wouldn't come closer, standing frozen near the door, clutching her iPad tightly. Her hands were trembling slightly. "Mom." Lily's voice quivered. Under the soft hospital room lighting, her daughter's face looked paler than usual. "Lily, come here. This is your precious little brother." As Caroline gently beckoned, tears welled up in Lily's eyes. "Mom, please don't bring the baby home." Caroline couldn't believe her ears at the sudden outburst. "Why? He's your precious little brother, isn't he?" Caroline tried to maintain her smile, but her anxiety grew at her daughter's unusual behavior. Lily held out her trembling hands with the iPad. "Look at this." Small fingers pressed the play button. The first voice she heard was her husband Gregory's. It was colder than any tone Caroline had ever heard from him. "Let's proceed with the plan, Diana. After the baby is born." A young woman's voice followed. "But can we really do this? Making it look like an accident. The insurance is already arranged. $25,000. This will start our new life." The recording continued. A detailed plan to stage a newborn's fatal accident. Insurance fraud arrangements. Gregory and Diana's future plans. Everything was meticulously recorded. The color drained from Caroline's face. The baby's fussing in her arms seemed to come from far away. Outside the hospital room window, the snow was intensifying. The Boston cityscape viewed from the 10th floor seemed to dissolve into white fog. Just then, a long, sharp ambulance siren echoed from the direction of the nurse's station. "Mom. I was scared." Lily's voice broke the frozen air. "Dad changed, but I thought no one would believe me without evidence." Caroline gently laid the baby in bed and held Lily tightly. Her daughter's small body was trembling. The thought of a 9-year-old girl carrying such pressure alone made her chest tighten. "You did so well, Lily." You did so very well." In her mother's arms, Lily's tears began to flow uncontrollably. All her fear, anxiety, and desperate desire to protect her mother and brother were finally released. On the bed, the newborn baby breathed peacefully, unaware of anything. Caroline's heart froze at the fact that this innocent life had almost been taken away. "Lily, Mommy will definitely protect you and the baby." Caroline pressed the nurse call button with trembling hands. First, she needed to contact the hospital's social worker. Then the police. She needed to submit evidence and request emergency protection for mother and children. In Caroline's mind, plans for the next steps were already being calmly assembled. "Lily, can you tell me everything?" Caroline asked quietly, gently holding her daughter's shoulders. The room's curtains were drawn, and social worker Julia Morrison sat in a chair, supportively close to mother and daughter. "I first noticed," Lily began in a trembling voice. In her small eyes floated memories she hadn't been able to confide in anyone until now. "It happened 2 weeks ago." Lily returned home earlier than usual after her after-school piano lesson at Ward Elementary School. When she noticed unfamiliar women's high heels at the entrance, anxiety had already sprouted in her heart. "I heard Dad's voice, but his laughter was different." From the living room leaked her father's voice, unlike any she'd heard before. Lily, who had taken up video editing on her iPad as a hobby 3 months earlier, instinctively started the recording app. It was less childlike curiosity than a premonition that something serious was happening. That person's name was Diana. She seemed to be from Dad's company. The social worker carefully took notes of Lily's testimony. Outside the window, dusk was creeping over Boston. From the first recording, Lily gradually documented her father's changes. Diana visiting their home twice a week. Intimate conversations in the living room. And gradually, the horrifying details of the plan emerged. Dad said it was the perfect plan. Lily's voice broke off. To make it look like an accident right after the baby was born. Caroline closed her eyes involuntarily. Her husband's plan to murder their newborn child. The inhumanity of it froze her heart. The night before Mom went to the hospital, they were having their final meeting. Lily operated the iPad with trembling hands and played the decisive recording. There, the detailed plan for insurance fraud was meticulously recorded. The procedure for staging the newborn's fall accident, claiming the high insurance payout. Creating the perfect alibi at the hospital. Everything had been carefully planned. "I was scared, but I knew I had to protect the baby." Large tears fell from Lily's eyes. Her small body trembled in her mother's arms. Social worker Julia maintained her professional composure, but deep sympathy showed in her eyes. "Lily, you're such a brave girl. But why didn't you tell anyone until now?" Caroline asked gently while stroking her daughter's hair. Lily hesitated for a moment, then answered in a small voice. "I was worried about the baby in your tummy. The doctor said Mom needs rest, remember?" Those words tightened Caroline's chest. The reality that a 9-year-old girl had carried this burden alone, even considering her mother's health. The pressure must have been unimaginable. Also, I thought no one would believe me without solid evidence, Lily continued. So I saved all the iPad recordings. That was smart thinking, Julia nodded quietly. With this much evidence, the police will act immediately. Just then, hurried footsteps were heard from the direction of the nurse's station. "Ma'am, the police have arrived," a nurse announced quietly. Caroline took a deep breath. "Lily, things might get a bit difficult from here. But Mommy will definitely protect you and the baby." Beyond the hospital room door, detectives from the Newton Police Department were already waiting. Gregory still didn't know his plan had been exposed. He must be at work now, going about his business as if nothing was wrong. "Ma'am, may we take your daughter's statement?" a police officer asked politely. Caroline nodded silently. Her heart was already steeled for the long battle ahead. The baby, wrapped in a warm blanket, continued to breathe peacefully, unaware of anything. "Lily, you're truly an amazing daughter," Caroline embraced her daughter tightly. "Mommy is so proud of you." In the hospital room overlooking Boston's cityscape, mother and daughter held hands tightly. The Massachusetts Supreme Court courtroom was filled with a solemn atmosphere. Sunlight of deep winter filtered through the windows into the courtroom lined with heavy wooden furnishings. Lily's small back stood straight with tension at the witness stand. Events had moved faster than expected. Gregory's arrest came just 4 hours after Lily's revelation at the hospital. Detectives who appeared at the Prudential Insurance Office apprehended branch manager Gregory Wilson amid the shocked expressions of employees. Diana Collins was arrested the same day at her family home in Connecticut. When did the witness first notice the anomaly that led to this incident? Prosecutor Michael Brown's voice echoed through the courtroom. 2 weeks ago. Though small, Lily's voice was clear. "From the day Dad suddenly gave me an iPad." The house search revealed further evidence. Multiple life insurance policies found in Gregory's study. Notes detailing future plans with Diana. And a detailed manual for staging the accident. Everything had seemed like a perfect plan. "Why did you start recording?" Lily glanced momentarily at her mother sitting in the courtroom. Caroline nodded slightly in encouragement. The baby was being cared for by Caroline's mother. Dad had changed. The kind dad became a cold person. The prosecution carefully established the legitimacy of Lily's recordings. The results of voice analysis. The consistency of recording dates and times. And the specificity of the content. All completely negated any possibility of fabrication or manipulation. When did the defendant Gregory Wilson begin planning the murder? The prosecutor's question was answered by Diana on the witness stand. She had already agreed to a plea deal with the prosecution. From last October. When Gregory learned of his wife's pregnancy, the plan. A shock ran through the courtroom. Judge John Murphy listened to the testimony with a stern expression. "Why did you participate in such a plan?" "Gregory promised us a future. Said we'd start a new life with the insurance money." Diana's testimony revealed the full scope of the incident. The total life insurance Gregory had contracted was $250,000. The plan was to stage the newborn's death by falling and fraudulently obtain the insurance money. With that money, the two planned to start a new life. But did you really believe this plan could be executed? Diana's expression crumbled at the prosecutor's pursuit. At first I thought it was a joke. But Gregory was serious. He promised to pay off my family's debts too. In the corner of the courtroom, Caroline quietly closed her eyes. 15 years of marriage. The home they had built together. Everything was about to crumble before her husband's calculating desires. Next, please explain the circumstances of the insurance contracts. The prosecution meticulously exposed Gregory's insurance fraud plan. Contracts with multiple insurance companies. Unnaturally high coverage amounts. Everything was built up as a complete chain of evidence. The defense tried to argue the illegality of the recordings, but it was determined there was no illegality in Lily's recordings made within their home. Gregory's lawyer attempted to argue temporary impairment of judgment due to mental stress, but the meticulousness of the plan completely negated that. How did you feel after noticing the changes in your father? To the prosecutor's final question, Lily answered straight. I was scared. But I knew I had to protect the baby and Mom. At those words, the jurors' expressions softened. The courage of a 9-year-old girl had changed the atmosphere in the courtroom. The verdict came surprisingly quickly. The defendant Gregory Wilson is hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison for attempted murder, attempted insurance fraud, and all related charges. Judge Murphy's voice resonated through the courtroom. Co-defendant Diana Collins is sentenced to 7 years in prison, taking into account the terms of her plea agreement. At the moment of sentencing, tears flowed from Caroline's eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief that everything was over. As they left the courtroom, Boston's sky was dyed a deep indigo. The bells of First Baptist Church of Newton could be heard in the distance. Mom, are we okay now? Lily held her mother's hand. Yes, we're safe now, Caroline embraced her daughter. Thanks to you, the baby and we are all protected. As they descended the courthouse steps, a new life stretched out before mother and daughter. Amid the flashing cameras of reporters, Caroline felt strongly, this wasn't an ending, but a new beginning. 1 year later, spring in a quiet residential area of Cambridge, Massachusetts. From a 3-story brownstone overlooking the Charles River, the presence of a family awakening with the morning light wafted through the air. Good morning, Thomas, Caroline kissed her 1-year-old son's cheek. It's a beautiful morning today. This new home, close to Harvard Square, was found with help from the members of First Baptist Church of Newton. The church community had been dedicatedly supporting their new life. Mom, I warmed Thomas's milk. Calling from the kitchen, Lily had grown into a reliable 10-year-old girl. She had adapted wonderfully to Cambridge Public School after transferring from Ward Elementary School. Now she served as a student council officer and had even started an iPad video production club. Thank you, Lily. You're such a wonderful big sister. Warm sunlight streamed onto the Sunday morning breakfast table, the fragrant aroma rising from the toaster, the gentle sound of the coffee maker. Everything had become part of their new daily routine. Caroline's home-based graphic design business had achieved unexpected success. Many of her former clients continued to support her, and new clients were steadily increasing. Her home office space was equipped with the latest iMac and drawing tablet, functioning as a creative workspace. "Hey Mom, there's the church picnic this afternoon, right?" Lily asked while drinking her orange juice. "Yes, it's the celebration of 1 year since Thomas's baptism." Caroline smiled as she placed pancakes on the table. Over the past year, the church community had become their spiritual support. The weekly Sunday services had become precious moments of peace for their souls. "Lily, do you remember? Around this time last year, when we moved here?" "Of course." Everyone from the neighborhood came to help. On moving day, church members arrived one after another to help carry in furniture. Some brought homemade casseroles and apple pies. The warm welcome was the greatest encouragement for mother and children who felt anxious about starting a new life in an unfamiliar place. "We've grown stronger," Caroline gazed out the window. The Charles River's surface sparkled in the morning sun. Once a week, mother and children attend family counseling. It's an essential process for overcoming trauma and building their new life. Dr. Sarah Green, their counselor, particularly praised Lily's recovery. "Lily, your courage gave us a new life." At her mother's words, Lily smiled somewhat shyly. Notifications of letters from Gregory, who continues to refuse visits, occasionally appear on her smartphone. But they're no longer afraid. "Mom, we're happy now, aren't we?" Caroline nodded deeply at Lily's words. Thomas showed an innocent smile in his high chair. His gestures sometimes heal the hearts of mother and daughter. While preparing for the afternoon picnic, Caroline offered a private prayer. Gratitude for these peaceful days. Blessings for family bonds. And guidance for the path ahead. The new family photo by the entrance captured the happy smiles of the three. It was proof of genuine happiness given only to those who have overcome trials. "Well, shall we go?" Caroline lifted Thomas and took Lily's hand. By the Charles River, the spring breeze gently caressed their cheeks. The painful past was becoming a distant memory. Now, a future full of hope stretched out before them. The church bells rang through the quiet Sunday morning. While announcing the beginning of a new day, it was also a blessing that brought peace to wounded hearts. Mother and daughter began walking, holding hands tightly. This was the path they had chosen. And this was the true form of family.